Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Some Seminarians podcast. This is a podcast starring seminarians from the Archdiocese of San Antonio. My name is Joseph, and today I'm joined by Moses Castro.
Hey Joseph.
And Prashanth Kumar.
Hi Joseph.
Hey guys, welcome. Glad to have you here.
Yeah, no thanks. We're happy to be here.
Thank you.
Yeah, so today we're going to be discussing the scary topics of loneliness and solitude.
Yikes.
Oh man, topics that no one ever wants to talk about.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to attack them and hopefully clear up any issues or any misunderstandings that people may have about these two terms, these two concepts.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing that we need to do is really establish what we mean by loneliness, solitude. What are the definitions? How can we best understand these ideas?
Yes. Yeah, solitude, I feel it is an awareness of being myself with God, being alone with God.
Yeah.
So it's not something, I think it's not something scary to be like or equated with loneliness.
Mm-hmm.
So loneliness is more of negative aspect.
Sure.
So it's a kind of longing, and the solitude is a kind of very fulfilling kind of God experience moment, I feel.
Yeah.
Yeah, so in both of these cases, both in loneliness and in solitude, you're by yourself.
Right, you're
That's
alone.
important, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's a common thing that they both have, but
Yeah.
I guess there's a different, like,
In
internal-
disposition, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Into your
Yeah.
disposition.
Yeah.
And like you were describing it, Prashanth, like that sense of loneliness, of being alone, being conscious and aware that you're by yourself, and having that sensation and that feeling of a longing, a feeling almost a disconnected perhaps from not only maybe those around you, but certainly from God. That sense of loneliness, of being isolated, alone, apart from others, and having just that longing of perhaps
like companionship or some company someone else to be with
belonging,
you.
or a sense of place, I think, even which happens when we're alone. But when we look at solitude, there's that sense of God's presence, right?
Yes.
Well, I think like even loneliness can happen even in like a big crowd of people.
Oh yeah,
Because like you can be like
you can be
with
lonely.
a bunch of people and be just be like, I don't know anyone here.
Yeah,
I don't really want to be here. And like I don't feel like I belong here.
yeah.
True.
But even since you just said, I don't know anyone here, but even one can experience loneliness, no doubt, in a room full of people that they do know.
Yeah,
Right?
that's
I
true.
mean,
That's very true.
even in a group of friends or family members, it's a normal kind of experience that we have as human beings. St. Augustine says it like, our hearts are restless until they rest in Thee, right?
Yes.
Resting in
Yeah,
God,
true.
who is our Creator and who's formed us. And so, as we long for God and that fullness of God in heaven, and we're here on this journey here on earth, no doubt our own human emotions and our experience of original sin separates us from that fulfillment and that experience of God's presence in our lives. And so therefore, anywhere we go along our journey, we can experience loneliness.
Yeah.
True.
Right.
Yeah, like so even the first parents of ours, like Adam and Eve, they were always with God.
Right.
So they were alone, like even to say,
Right.
but they were with God. So the moment of sin is when they started experiencing loneliness.
Yeah.
A kind of that's a
Wow.
kind of an awareness. It's
Certainly.
a very powerful. It can happen to us when we try to go away from God. Is when we try to feel more of loneliness.
Right.
Is what I feel.
Yeah. Well, I think like all three of us can, I guess, think of or remember personal experiences of loneliness or solitude. I don't know if you like because you came over here from India. This is like a much different culture and like experience for you, right?
Yeah, true. See, for me, coming from India, it's altogether a new experience here. And then we always live in large families. So we live with parents, siblings, and then sister-in-laws, brother-in-laws, a lot of niece and nephews and all that. So I lived in such a setup where I had lived with my family very closely and eating together every day. And then even in the parish, I used to be very busy from morning till night. And then I had no idea about kind of much of loneliness or solitude, both. Because except the moments I went to Adoration Chapel, sometimes I prayed and I had that solitude, moment of solitude with God. But it was never a moment of loneliness and things like that. But here, when I came here, I started experiencing that loneliness because away from the family, all by myself. I was here. Sometimes I was literally alone in the seminary. In the beginning days,
in the discernment house.
It's a huge house, and having no people around, it was kind of sometimes scary.
It was like monastic. You were out in the desert.
It was threatening, but slowly I started enjoying. So slowly, when I started appreciating that silence time with myself, it was good. I started enjoying. How about you?
Yeah, no, certainly. I think the way you're describing it, that sense of like being around family, being around people who know you, who that, I mean, even that sense of intimacy that you might have with family members, the intimacy into me see, like this experience of having someone know you, no doubt as family as you grow up, but then coming now to a foreign country in a totally different environment, having that sense of isolation even, and I think that perhaps can even, any of our experiences in which we find ourselves in a totally different environment and culture, it can certainly, I think, test our relationship with God. Right? Because it's in that separation from the people and the relationships we know, and it's a whole like going out into the desert, and the only person you know there is yourself and God. And so then there's that test of like, who is God to you? And even like, who are you to yourself? Right? So there's that huge like testing of like identity. And I think when we think about this too, we don't want to be alone or isolated from other people, because then we only hear our thoughts. And I think there's a lot of people who are afraid, especially in our culture today. There's so much an emphasis in noise, but if we find ourselves isolated and separate only with our own thoughts, then we can hear ourselves in a way we can't when there's a lot of external noises. And we know this very well. Like, the greater I know myself, then I think the greater we know God, and the greater that we know God, the greater we come to grow in self-awareness about who we are, because we're created in His image and likeness, right? So I think in that sense of loneliness and isolation, it really can test our understanding of who God is in our lives. So I think for you, Prashanth, like you explained just now, coming from a different culture and country into the United States, in San Antonio specifically, at the seminary, what an incredible time of discernment and prayer, and thanks be to God. Like I've experienced you. We've been here at the seminary with you now, and just kind of seeing that transformation and like that growing in sense of community. Right.
That's true. Like in the beginning it was tough, and slowly, eventually, when I started enjoying the moments of the exposition of the sacrament, where in the evenings we used to spend an hour or so in silence, enjoying the blessed presence of the Blessed Sacrament, and then that gave a kind of new experience, new strengthening movement, and it's no more kind of loneliness after that. So slowly I started enjoying the moments of solitude. It's very beautiful, I feel.
Yeah, it reminds me of like a previous summer experience I had. I was assigned to a parish that's like way out in the hill country here in Texas. And I was like living by myself in the rectory. Just
no one else was there.
No.
Where was the pastor?
No, they're in a different city. down the highway, like 20 minutes at the other parish.
Oh, okay. So there were multiple parishes that the pastor had, and you were at one rectory, and he was at another. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it was just me by myself, and oh man, it was different, because like here, like during the school year, if you want to talk to someone, you can just go down the hallway, go into the courtyard. Like I do a lot. Like you joked with me before.
I always run into Joseph in the courtyard.
So like if you want someone to talk to, it's just a few seconds away. Over there, I there's like not really I could do.
You talk to the squirrels or what?
Yeah, I know. Like I just had to be kind of like be one with nature. Like I would find myself just all alone in the rectory. Again, that word alone.
Sure.
But it's like, I think it's like he can approach it different ways. You can react to being alone different ways. So like what I would do is it was very nice having the church literally right next to the rectory.
Right.
So I could just make it like a 20-second walk, go into the church, spend time in prayer, be with Jesus. Besides that, I would often go on walks around, just like enjoy the nature, because it was just like out there in the hill country. Not loud at all, not busy, just very calm and peaceful.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, no, it was great. Go down like past farms and see cows in the field, like all that good stuff. So that was like a totally new experience for me. Just really having like what you were saying, like that testing, like how can you handle being alone with yourself, being alone with God, not having so many distractions.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, sometimes the distractions could be there. Like I could have easily just been in my room, like watching TV, watching movies.
Or on your phone.
Yeah. Instead of really taking the time to kind of having like a retreat experience.
Yeah.
Like at some points, it just felt like I was on a retreat.
I'm curious, Joseph, because I kind of see you more as like perhaps an introvert, or you do like your space and all that. But how is that different than you being out at the parish alone, when perhaps that's kind of a natural inclination for you to be more quiet? Anyway, is it? I'm curious what that.
No, they're.
Is it the fact that you can't choose? Perhaps, like in that instance, like you're out there and isolated, and there's not really much of an option. Like I guess perhaps I hear what you're saying, because you were saying earlier, like you can go out to the courtyard and encounter people. You can go out and you can. It's your choice, right? I think that makes
there's plenty of like moments for social interaction. Either like driving or coming back to class. Having meals with all the seminarians, going to prayer, even mass, like you're with the community. Plenty of moments for community. There wasn't really the option. Like during the day, I would be at the parish helping around in the offices, doing errands with the pastor. But then I would just go home, and it's like there wasn't a choice. I was just there.
I think there's an element of that lack of choice, because even for you, Prashanth, like back home, you were around a community every day, and you said you would spend all your day at the parish. But here, when you come here, there's not so much of a choice anymore. Like it's the reality of the situation where we find ourselves actually alone, and it's not necessarily a choice in those instances. And I think I just heard that similar story between the both of y'all, and I think that's what we were saying this earlier. Like that's when the Lord really is inviting you to respond and see how you would respond.
True. Like see, when you are with yourself, you try to know. In solitude, you grow in God, and also you become more aware of yourself. So when you know more about yourself is when you can go deep into God. That's what I feel.
Which is in it. Which maybe we can talk about solitude for a little bit, because we kind of talked a little bit about loneliness already. But that sense of solitude, that we can physically be alone, we can be physically isolated, but that we have that sense of God's presence with us, and there's that comfort and there's that peace that comes with it.
Yes,
which is, I think, for some reason I'm thinking of Saint Teresa of Avila and the mountain, right, climbing the castle. But even there, in the sense of solitude, is this. I don't know, I want to say crescendo, if you will, of our faith experience with God. Like it's this experience that we come up and we have this sense of just like, I don't know what that means.
But the peak experience.
Like even like thinking of Jesus himself, like he always, we know this, he was out with the people, he was preaching, he was loving them, serving them, these beautiful acts of charities, these miracles. But
and he gets up early.
And then where does he go? What does he do?
To be alone, to pray, be with his Father.
To be alone.
I think the same is with the priests also in the parishes. So the priests are available in the parish office from morning till evening, or during the mass and things like that. But they need to be in the moments of solitude to gain the strength, like Jesus. Like Jesus would go out and early in the morning, spend hours talking to his Father. In the same way, I think the priests do. Through their prayers and the moments of solitude, they get energized.
Like they say, you can't give what you don't have. Right? So the priest in his spiritual life it's essential
True.
that he finds those moments of solitude so that he can feed the people.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, no, I've heard most of you, or even the priest, who were saying that the person who does not pray, who doesn't pray, we cannot be consistent in his occasion.
I want to say they're going to run out of gas.
Yeah, it's
if you're not praying, you're going to run out of gas.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, a priest who prays will never leave the priesthood, is what I think, to put it in the right way.
Sure.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, no, I've heard similar. It's like a priest who was like having some difficulties, like they're getting help, and then the person was like, well, how often do you pray? And they're like, I don't have time to pray. But then the other person said, if you don't have time to pray, you don't have time to be a priest.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's true. That is not something we do out of pick something out of many things. That's the fundamental thing that we need to choose to be with God, to pray, and to have the moments of solitude.
Yes,
that's a basic. This is a primary call that we are called to.
Yeah, it's a form of imitating the master, imitating Jesus, following his example.
That's true.
Because I guess we're talking about loneliness and solitude. At least we know for sure solitude is something that we're called to experience. That's something God wants us to experience, to be comfortable with, because he lived that, I guess, profoundly during his life here on earth.
Sure.
So that's part of it. Part of the Christian life. I don't know, what would you say loneliness is part of this? Should be something that we're supposed to experience, or?
Well, I think it's part of just the human experience.
Yeah.
I mean, it's inevitable, right? And we're talking about it in the context of as seminarians and even priests, but no doubt about it, all people experience loneliness at some point in their life journey. We said this already. It's a very natural part of original sin, and even married couples. No matter what vocation you're in, there's that experience of loneliness because it's very natural. And so we said that already. Even in the midst of your family or a group of friends, you might have this sensation and this experience of being alone and isolated, even though you're around the dinner table or on the couch watching a movie with your family. So even married couples in their relationships can experience loneliness along the way.
Sure.
And I think it's an invitation from God. It's not necessarily like perhaps like a punishment or anything like that. It's an invitation that we might draw ourselves back to him and re-find our center.
Yeah.
Because perhaps then, like you were saying, Prashanth, like a priest could be super busy, or Joseph was saying it, super busy, not having time to pray, and so their gas tank's going to run low. Similarly, within a relationship, a married couple, if they're not availing themselves to times of personal prayer and devotion and meditation, then certainly their connection with their spouse and with their children perhaps could suffer, and it could experience then loneliness.
True.
You can even see like feeling lonely or experiences of loneliness as special graces, special blessings from God,
absolutely.
As opportunities, like you were just saying, to grow in intimacy.
Right.
Again, the contrast between loneliness and intimacy.
Right.
With God.
Yeah.
To grow in relationship with Him, and not seeing it as like a curse or something to just try to. Feeling lonely. Well, eventually it'll pass. I just gotta push through this and not really do anything, but instead realize that this is an opportunity for to respond to God's grace.
Exactly.
In this way.
Yeah, like see, as we are discussing about this topic, I think about these contemplative orders. How do they think about this? I don't know. Like, I because see, for us there are moments of solitude but for them, it's a kind of wow. I think there are certain number of hours that they need to be silent, and they have. I don't know.
Could you do that, Prashanth?
It'll be hard for me. I talk a lot. It'll be very difficult for me.
Yeah. You make a good point, and I think one thing I was thinking about too is like, in terms of like the secular world and the culture and the workplace, we're oriented, especially here in America, in the United States, we're oriented in this direction of do more, be more successful, accumulate more wealth, keep looking for the next promotion, et cetera, et cetera. So we try to stay as busy as we possibly can. And that then can, I think, disorient us, and we can fall off the wagon, or the spiritual wagon, if you will. And so we have these. How do I want to say it? We have these kind of like guideposts in the culture of like, okay, I need to get here. I need to get a nice car. I need to buy a fancy house. I need to get married. I need to have a family. And so we're orienting ourselves in that direction, and that's all we're feeding ourselves with. But when we look at the monastic tradition, they're not using those guideposts. Sure. They're not using the roadmap of the culture. They're looking simply at who is God and how do I experience him, and orienting their life's journey here on earth, their pilgrimage on earth, to growing in intimacy with God. Whereas in our secular culture, we've threw that out the window a long time ago, right? Yeah. And we're orienting ourselves, and our guidepost and our roadmap is simply the success I'm seeing in my career. And therefore, the result is oftentimes loneliness.
True.
Right? And so I think the monastic traditions, the contemplative traditions, I'm just seeking God.
Yeah.
Yeah, such a contradiction between the world and I guess the spiritual life.
True.
This idea that we hear a lot in our classes, like that you're in the world, but you're not of the world. So like you're living in society, not even like monastic settings, but like even out here in the city, you can be going to your jobs, having a family, but you can still not be caught into that, I guess, worldly culture, those, I guess, I don't know, those ideas that society tries to like make you believe or convince you. Rather just focusing on God, on how God wants you to live, how you can grow in relationship, being close to God, rather than like feeling like you need to be close to everyone else.
Which true.
You were saying this in a conversation we were having before the recording, like that the culture even frowns upon being alone.
Oh yeah, it's like embarrassing.
Yeah.
It's like something you don't want to like really let other people know about.
Yeah, see that. Oh yeah, I'm alone, or like maybe there's some people out there who are seeking a spouse. They're looking for to find someone to date, and they're out there seeking, but they're alone. There's that sensation of even looking at other people around them who are in a relationship, and they have that sensation of, I'm alone. Why am I alone? Why am I alone? But looking at it, like we said already, it's an invitation to receive God's grace. And to find yourself in that place as a gift and experience God in that solitude.
Yeah, like even many people, they misjudge or the seminarians and the priests. They think priests and seminarians are lonely, depressive people and things like that. So it should be corrected, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we are not. Seminary is not a place for depressive people.
Right.
Lonely, depressive people.
Right. Or the priesthood, right?
Yeah,
like you're saying
also.
There's a joy, especially as we speak about this, because if it's your vocation, if it's what God's created you to respond in this way and to live your life in that way, then there's going to be joy.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a sense of like self-knowledge and self-awareness and who God is in your life and what he's inviting you to.
Sure. It is through the moments of solitude that we get there. No, it's not. It's definitely not moments of solitude. Not loneliness, I feel.
Like going back again to scripture, we can see like many instances of how God works many amazing things in moments of solitude. Like we were discussing earlier, like the Annunciation. Mary just being by herself.
She was alone.
And then the angel comes
Nobody
to her.
Nobody knew what was happening at the moment.
And the angel appeared to her. Like that.
Another one. The biggest one we have in our faith, the resurrection.
Resurrection.
Who was around for that? No one.
Nobody.
All the disciples came later and they saw the empty tomb. But at the moment, it was just Jesus by himself. Another one. I don't know if you can think of
like even the child, the seed that sprouts, or the baby that conception happens. So all these are very silent things that happen. So it's very powerful.
Yeah, I mean, and then you're also the nativity. Christ, when Christ is born, they're out, away, secluded, in a cave, and there the Christ child is born. And so like the beauty of even then the invitation for us to reflect on our own lives of like how are we incorporating perhaps silence, solitude into our spiritual experience or our journey on earth. Like how are we incorporating those moments of reflection into our lives is really important.
Yeah, I think that's something that's really good about seminarians, priests, even all Christians, like
Sure.
having moments of regular retreats
Right.
to be by yourself, spend
Right.
time with God, just get away from like your normal routine,
Right.
and just trying to live out these moments of solitude.
Yeah.
Let God work amazing things
Right.
during these moments.
Right. Be
Yeah.
countercultural.
Yeah.
You know, like just buck the trend and like be countercultural and be like go on a retreat.
True.
Go be silent.
Yeah. Like when I was in India, like I was before I would enter my seminary.
Mm-hmm.
So I was alone. Like I used to go to parishes,
Right.
Where they would do retreats, or even retreat centers where I would make a retreat once in 6 months or once a year or so. So that way I used to enjoy that moments of solitude, and it was a very powerful experience that I used to have, and I think that would eventually lead me to seminary.
Right. Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. This has been a really good conversation.
Yeah.
And thank you all for watching. Please share with us your thoughts about loneliness, about solitude. How have you experienced these two ideas in your life? Any suggestions or anything you want to share with us to keep the conversation going? Please subscribe to our podcast on YouTube, on Facebook, Instagram, wherever you find us talking.
Yeah.
Please join us next time. Thank you guys, Prashanth,
thanks, Joseph.
Moses.
Thank you, Joseph.
Yeah,
Thank you,
yeah,
Moses.
of
I
course.
enjoyed it.
And all of you, thanks again, and God bless you. Take care.